Do you ever feel like your anxiety is controlling you? Like no matter how hard you try to suppress those racing thoughts, they just keep coming back, almost tightening their grip on your mind and body. It can be incredibly frustrating, right? But what if I told you there's one simple tool that can help you take back control? One that's not medication, not an app, and not therapy, but something that you can start using right now. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the one tool you need to control your anxiety, which is journaling. And I know that might sound too simple, but it's effective. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand how powerful this practice can really be. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is about that topic, anxiety. It's one that hits close to home for far too many of us. You see, anxiety is something that affects millions and millions of people, whether it's in the form of constant worry, nagging self-doubt, or feeling like you're almost on the edge for no apparent reason. Some people may be juggling careers, personal goals, relationships. You see, anxiety can become a real roadblock. It's not just the feeling of nervousness before a big event or a big presentation or a gathering or a meeting. It's that underlying hum of anxiety that can drain your energy, mess with your focus, and make even small tasks feel overwhelming. I know how tough it is because I've been there myself. Anxiety can make you feel like you're losing control, like everything's spinning out of your hands. But here is the good news. There is a way to manage it. And no, it's not some complicated out-of-reach solution. The tool I'm sharing with you today is something that's been scientifically proven to help you organize your thoughts, to help you reduce anxious feelings, and to help you bring clarity to your mind. We're going to step into the world of effective journaling. And notice I said the word effective. I'm sure some of you here already journal, but what if we could get even more benefits from it? Now, I'm not just going to tell you to write in a diary and call it a day. We're going to dive deep into how journaling actually works, the science behind it, and how you can use it to calm your mind and take back control of your life. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of journaling, let's take a moment to understand anxiety from perhaps a slightly different angle, almost a new way of looking at it. You see, anxiety isn't inherently bad. It's actually a biological response that's designed to protect us. It's part of the body's fight or flight system. It's meant to help us recognize and respond to danger. In the early years of human evolution, anxiety kept us alive. It signaled to our ancestors when they were in danger and needed to react quickly, like running from predators or seeking shelter from a storm. But here's the thing, our modern lives don't typically involve those same immediate life-threatening dangers. Instead, we're dealing with email overload, tight deadlines, social pressure, never-ending list of things to do, all the business things, or even financial stress. Our brains are still wired to see all of those changes as potential threats, which is why we feel anxious even though we're not physically in danger. What happens when we experience anxiety is that our brain essentially shortcuts into survival mode. Our heart rate increases, our breathing gets shallow, and our thoughts almost start racing. Now, the problem is that instead of protecting us from danger, anxiety often locks us in a state of perpetual worry. And because these modern dangers don't just go away like an inbox just suddenly is clear, that keeps filling up, doesn't it? And it's a little bit with that financial worry that perhaps we can't resolve overnight. Our anxiety can become chronic. The chronic nature of anxiety means it can affect every area of your life, your work, your relationships, and even your health. But the key to breaking free from this cycle is learning to understand and manage your anxiety rather than allowing it to run wild. So why journaling? Now, you've probably heard people say, just write it out, it'll help. But it's much more than that. You see, journaling gives you a chance to organize your mental clutter. And that's one of the key ways it helps to control anxiety. the power of journaling can really contribute to controlling anxiety. When you're anxious, your mind can feel like a jumbled up mess of thoughts, and the thoughts are coming at you from all different directions, whether that's fears, what ifs, and worries about the future. These thoughts can be relentless and often exhausting, but journaling allows you to slow down and capture those thoughts one by one. Instead of letting them swirl around your head, you're placing them on paper, which gives you some distance from them. Now that distance, that's where it's really powerful, because it allows you to see your thoughts objectively rather than being overwhelmed by them. Now, this act of writing forces your brain to organise, even if it doesn't feel structured at first. Simply the process of externalising your thoughts onto the page helps to calm the storm, if you like. Your brain recognises that you're doing something different, something about the problem, rather than just letting it fester in the background. And that alone gives you a sense of relief and control. Now, research shows that expressive writing, a form of journaling that involves writing about your emotions and thoughts, has a range of mental health benefits. Studies have found that it can reduce symptoms of anxiety, depression, and even physical ailments like chronic pain. By simply putting your thoughts and feelings on paper, you allow yourself the space to process emotions in a healthy way, instead of letting them build up and become overwhelming. So let's talk about the specific ways that journaling works to calm your mind. As I mentioned earlier, journaling externalizes your thoughts. When you're dealing with anxiety, your thoughts often feel like they're constantly in motion. They can seem bigger and more threatening when they're bouncing around inside your head. Writing them down gives you almost something concrete to work with. You're literally taking the thoughts out of your head and putting them onto paper. And this alone helps to diminish their power. So here's an analogy. Think of your anxious thoughts like a tight knot in a string. The more you think about them, the tighter the knot gets. So journaling is like slowly and carefully unraveling that knot. By writing, you're loosening the tension in your mind, almost one thread at a time. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. The key is that you're making an effort to untangle the mess. So let's have a look at the scientific impact of journaling on anxiety. You see, the effects of journaling on the brain are more than just psychological. They are biological. And they're biological reasons why journaling works to reduce stress and anxiety. When we journal, we engage the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logical thinking and problem solving. Now, this is crucial when dealing with anxiety, because anxiety is often driven by the amygdala, the brain's fear center. You see, the amygdala can trigger the fight or flight response, creating panic and stress, even in non-threatening situations. You see, journaling helps bridge the gap between the emotional response driven by the amygdala and the logical response and reasoning of the prefrontal cortex. You see, when you write, you're encouraging your brain to engage in critical thinking, helping you to put your fears into perspective. You see, journaling also helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system. This system is responsible for our rest and relaxation. This system helps counteract the stress response initiated by the sympathetic nervous system, the part that's responsible for our fight or flight. So by focusing your thoughts through journaling, you actually shift your body out of stress mode, slowing your heart rate and reducing feelings of anxiety. So now there are different types of journaling for anxiety, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach. But the beauty of this tool is that you can adapt it to suit and to be your own style, and it'll suit what you need. So let's explore 4 types of journaling so you can find the one that works best for you. The first one is stream of consciousness journaling. This is one of the simplest forms of journaling and a great place to start. In stream of consciousness journaling, You simply write whatever comes to mind. Don't worry about it making it neat or coherent. Just let your thoughts flow freely. The goal is to unload your mind and get all your thoughts out onto the page. Over time, you will notice patterns and triggers in your thoughts, which will then help you understand and manage your anxiety even better. The next is prompt-based journaling. So if you struggle to get started, first of all, know that that's very typical, but prompts can be incredibly helpful. A prompt will give you and your journaling some direction. It allows you to focus on a specific aspect of your anxiety. For example, you might write about what's causing me the most stress today, or what are 3 things that I'm worried about right now. Prompts help you dig deeper into your emotions and can reveal thoughts you might not have been consciously aware of. And then the third is gratitude journaling, one of my favorites, but gratitude journaling is particularly effective for reducing anxiety. When you're in a state of worry, your brain is focused on what's going wrong. Gratitude journaling shifts your attention to what's going right. So each day, write down at least 3 things that you're grateful for. You see, this practice rewires your brain to focus more on the positives in your life, which helps balance out the negative and anxious thoughts. And then the 4th one is progress journaling. Tracking your progress over time can be incredibly empowering. In progress journaling, you keep a record of your anxiety triggers, how you responded, and also what helped you cope. And then by looking back at your entries, you can see how far you've come, which builds confidence and resilience. So now that you understand the power of journaling, let's go over some practical tips to help you start journaling for anxiety. The first is to make it a habit. Consistency is key. The more you make journaling a part of your daily routine, the more natural it will feel. So set aside a specific time each day to journal, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Secondly, find a quiet space. Choose a quiet, comfortable place where you can write without interruptions. You see, this is your time to focus on yourself. So create an environment that feels peaceful and calming. The next part is don't worry about perfection. One of the biggest obstacles people face with journaling is the fear of not doing it right. Now, the reality is there's no right or wrong way to journal. We want to be able to write whatever comes to mind without overthinking it. Don't judge yourself for what you're writing, and certainly don't hold back. Just let it flow. And the 4th one is to be patient with yourself. If journaling feels awkward or uncomfortable at first, know that that's okay, but it might take a little time to get into the flow, especially if you're not used to writing about your feelings. But I promise you, the more you practice, the easier it will become. So be patient with yourself and trust that this process will get easier over time. I remember a number of years ago when I was going through a particularly rough patch in my life. I was working incredibly long hours, trying to juggle multiple responsibilities and dealing with a lot of uncertainty in certain areas. Every morning I woke up with pretty much a sense of dread. My mind would start racing the moment I opened my eyes, and I'd feel this tightness on my chest that just wouldn't go away. It got to the point where even small tasks felt overwhelming, like I was constantly on the verge of panic. One evening, after another exhausting day, I sat down and decided to write. I didn't have a plan or any idea what I was going to say and write, but I grabbed an old notebook and I just started putting my thoughts down on paper. At first, it felt uncomfortable and strange. I didn't think that writing would help. But as I started to write about my fears, my anxieties, and everything that was weighing me down and just weighing on me, something unexpected happened. I felt a little lighter. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was no longer just carrying everything in my head. So the next day I tried it again and I wrote about how anxious I felt before going to work and how I feared failing or making mistakes. And instead of just experiencing the anxiety, I was now observing it. The simple act of putting my thoughts on paper created a separation between me and the anxiety. Over time, I began to notice patterns. Certain triggers like upcoming deadlines or difficult conversations were one of the things that was making me anxious. But instead of spiraling into panic, I started to gain a sense of control. I could see these triggers coming and I was able to prepare myself emotionally. As weeks went by, I made journaling part of my daily routine. It became my way of almost processing what I was going through, a safe space to release my thoughts. Sometimes I'd write about my deepest worries. Other times I would just vent about my day. It didn't matter if my writing was messy or unstructured, which for me, very bizarre because I'm a very structured person, but it was the act of getting it out of my head and onto paper that mattered. Now, I won't say that journaling cured my anxiety, but it helped me transform my relationship with it. So instead of being consumed by my anxious thoughts, I learned to become the observer of them, to question them, and even challenge them. And slowly, the overwhelming power anxiety once had over me began to diminish. You see, for me, journaling has been a game changer. It's almost like just dropping the pounds, the weight. It's helped me organise my thoughts. It's helped me recognise my triggers and approach situations with a clearer, calmer mind. And I know it can do the same for you. Sometimes all it takes is one simple tool to change the way you see your anxiety. And journaling has been that tool for me. Anxiety doesn't have to run your life. By using the simple tool of journaling, it can take back control. You can take back control over your mind, your emotions, and your reactions. So whether you choose to write every day, use prompts, or just jot down thoughts when you're feeling anxious, journaling is a powerful way to slow down the whirlwind of anxiety and regain a sense of calm. So grab a notebook, find a quiet space, and start journaling today. You might be surprised at just how transformative this effective journaling practice can be. As always, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more content on personal development and growth, and also creating a life you love. I'd love to hear from you. What's your experience with journaling? Let me know in the comments, and if you do have any questions, please do drop them in the comments below as well. I will respond to everybody. And remember, you have the power to control your anxiety, one word at a time.